Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Fund Finance Expert Talk. I'm Mbayi. I'm the head of banking finance of Praxio. Praxio is an independent, full-service Luxembourg law firm, and I have the pleasure here to receive Emma Wang. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So yes, as a reminder, the expert talk there are three main objectives. The first is to inspire, because we are receiving leaders in the fund finance industry and they tell us about their personal story in fund finance. The second is to teach, as we'll develop technical points. And the third is to inform, as there will be a market update. So Emma, as a kickoff, can you maybe introduce yourself and your role?
Sure. So I'm Emma Wang. I am the general manager of East West Bank's Hong Kong branch. East West Bank is a NASDAQ-listed, U.S.-based bank, and we are a bank providing comprehensive banking services with a focus on cross-border transactions between U.S. and Asia. So in addition to Hong Kong branch, we also have RMB subsidiary bank in Shanghai, and we also have a rep office in Singapore. East West Bank actually covers and manages many specialty industries, and among those, fund finance is the largest specialty group in the bank. That's who we are. We are among the more than 5,000 banks in U.S., we are actually, one of the large banks in the U.S.
Great. You are also one of the key figures of the fund finance industry in the Asia Pacific. So I would be interested to know more about your story in fund finance. So how did you enter into this field?
Sure. So before I assumed the role of the general manager of Hong Kong branch, and my entire career actually was in fund finance. I started fund finance at Comerica Bank, back in 2006 in their Boston office. At that time, capital call lines, subscription lines was kind of like a new product in the market, even in US, and I practiced, I was in the equity fund services group, and I practiced fund finance over there for 5 years before I joined East West Bank in 2012 as one of the 3 co-founders of the fund finance practice in the US. And after we, built a solid foundation in the US, and I started to explore Asia market in 2016. So during the first 3 years, I traveled back and forth between Asia and the US on a quarterly basis, so this was kind of my part-time job, while I still have a big portfolio in the US. So I spent 2 months in US and 1 month in Asia for 3 years. Every time I come to Asia, I talk to GPs, basically really tell them what we do in US, what we see, how you can leverage banking services to smooth your operations, how you can utilize leverage on a credit facility. And things has been doing well, and then more and more banks, now or have entered, this market in Asia. And I moved to Hong Kong in 2019, and I built up the fund finance group for our Hong Kong branch here. So we have actually, fund finance group is the largest specialty, like the largest actually corporate banking group, in our Hong Kong branch. And we cover customers not only in Greater China, but also, in Singapore and including Southeast Asia. And we are not probably the typical, bank you see in the market. We do underwrite capital call lines, subscription lines, for funds. However, we are really focused on provide value-added service to funds, so including management companies, GPs, their employees, in the funds, as well as funds in their late stage of their life, for other solutions, in their life of operations.
Great. And I'm curious about to know if you have some challenges during your career, or you have faced those challenges.
Yeah, so I'm always looking back, on my careers, right, for so many years. I see myself, I'm always entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur like say starting a company, but rather entrepreneur on a banking platform. I'm always starting something new in the bank. And the challenges are really different at different stage of my life, career-wise and family-wise, right? Let's talk about career-wise first. So, when I started this career, and at that time I was young, when you are young, you are kind of always wondering, oh, what is your future career? Do you really want to stay in this area? What is your passion, right? What do you really enjoy, right? And I think a fund of finance is an interesting area because it's new, and you don't get bored, right? Everything is new, so you can put more value into the program, the new products into it. At the same time, it's really challenging because there's no such infrastructure in many of the banks out there. So you started from scratch, right? And the good thing is on East West Bank platform is that I think as a mid-sized bank, not those mega banks, right? So each department, they only probably do their portion or their piece in the picture. In East West Bank, I think I had the opportunity to really build up this platform from scratch and really, understand and soup to nuts in the process. So here, in addition to capital call lines, which is really common in the market, we have the infrastructure or the internal kind of support to develop, new products, in a short time frame. So if I want to do something new in the market, we don't have a complicated kind of internal, process. We can, onboard this new product right away. So I think that's more like a rewarding, when you face the challenge, you receive the rewarding, in your career. So I think, after initial struggle when I was young, whether you stay in a modest sized bank or you go to a big bank just to a small piece in the big picture, I think, being an entrepreneur is really my passion, so I stayed, and I think, it's a good outcome. I don't get bored every day. And I think the other main challenge is really, as a woman, you also face, the other part of the challenge is more personal, right? When you develop your career at the same time, you are really growing your family, right? When you have kids, and with a demanding job like a banker, in the front line, like you always, struggle between the balance between job and the family, right? And I think looking back, right, I have to say, different stage of your life, you have different focus. When kids are young or family, you just started family, you manage your work, but I don't think you can sacrifice a lot on the family side to develop your career, and your focus would be on your family. But along the way, when your kids grow up, it's gonna free up more time for you to focus on your career. I think that the process, sometimes it's painful. You always have to balance and juggle, between, job and a career, but everyone has different challenge, I think, in this process. And I think, everyone has its own story and experience into it, but especially to a woman, this is particular important that, you manage, both career and the family well along the process.
I see. And in your career, we can say that you progress quite quickly. Like in 10 years, you've been from like junior role in your bank to today general manager of the Hong Kong branch of your bank. So, from your perspective, what are the main qualities required to be a leader?
Um, Yes, in my career, I have been in both public and the private sector. I've been with East West Bank for more than 10 years, but, as many of you know that I left the bank temporarily for 1.5 years to join a secondary fund, and I tried to run, a Navy financing strategy in Asia. Um, and I think, I'm proud. I tried everything, I like to try. And I also got lucky, or got the opportunity to do, what I wanted to do. But I think I also put a lot of effort into that. I think being a leader is a lot of responsibility. It's not the leader, the definition itself. It means, a lot of serious things, you have to consider, right? It's not about yourself. It's about your team right now. It's about the branch. We have more than 80 people staff, in the branch. And then I need to, take care of them. And that's a lot of responsibility. So being a leader, it means a lot of ownership, it's an ownership from every aspect. I think, in my current role, my job is not just to, close deals, or build up the portfolio. I have to also make sure I take the ownership for the other department that, we are in compliance with the regulator, and we do the operation is in compliance with, we have our BSA policy, we have, other part of, operation kind of matters I need to manage every day. And also, I also need to manage human resource. So it's a lot of responsibility. So if you only enjoy closing deals and think, being a leader of a business unit, might be, a good role for you. But if you want to, go higher or take more responsibilities, you have to understand that you'll have a ownership on different aspects, of the business. I think during this process, we always, how do I say, leadership also requires some sort of ambition, This is not to everyone. Some people, they probably just feel comfortable or feel satisfied, just, stay at what they are doing every day. But for others, they might want to go higher, try different things. I think ambition is not a bad thing, but we need to really kind of balance between your ambition and the reality, and going back and forth, during this process. And ultimately, I would say you have to love your job, have the passion, before you become a leader. Because in a leadership role, you need to motivate people, right? If you don't like the job, how could you motivate other people to be motivated, right? To do the job better. So, I think in my situation, it's I would say being a leader is really a combination of ambition, your passion, and also ownership.
Emma, you're also a member of the Advisory Council Asia Pacific of the Fund Finance Association. And I'm curious to know about which are the current trends for the private equity sector in China, and more broadly for the APAC region.
Yes. So fund financing actually is quite quiet right now in Asia. That is because, US dollar fundraising slowed down significantly since the beginning of 2022, I would say. End of actually, 2021. That is due to the, geopolitical tension, we all know. And the US, European, the Western LPs, they slowed down their investments, in Asia, especially in China. So it's very challenging right now, and we also had SVB event last year, right? It creates a different level of chaos in the market. For us, we welcome more customers, from SVB because at that time, they are all looking for a bank. At the same time, existing, customers, they might think, differently, for a U.S. bank. So there's a lot of back and forth, in terms of the volume, new customers and the deals. In the meantime, we are in a high interest rate environment, right? And we are talking about a prime rate 8.5% right now. That's, our fund of finance capital call lines, is probably, not too far away from this rate, currently in Asian markets. Which always makes me wonder if a fund is paying interest at this rate, right, on a monthly or quarterly basis for their interest. How would LP, think about it? Because how many funds out there, they can generate a cash return about 7% these days? So the usage of a subscription line these days is much lower than before. I think due to two reasons. First of all, investment pace slowed down in Asia. And the second of all, borrowing is kind of expensive, due to the high rates. In the meantime, the older generations of PE/VC funds in this market, they are maturing, because PE industry itself is a new concept, in Asia. You see the industry is booming so fast only for the past 10 years, right? So the early generations of the funds, they are about to expire, or some of the funds, they already extended for 1 or 2 times already. So there's a lot of discussion in the market and also pressures from the investors about DPIs, right? So before, when an Asian GP, they try to raise a new fund, they can always talk about, the IRR story. But these days, when you pitch, everybody was asking for what is your DPI, right? So if you cannot exit or sell, liquidate, the investment you invest, it's hard for you to raise the next fund. Because of this, and in the meantime, because the market is not that great, it's slowed down significantly. IPO is not really a successful, exit venue anymore, right? So GPs are looking for other solutions, how they can sell the portfolio companies, they invested these days. So secondary market is one of the other options. And more GPs are asking for, NAV financings, they are looking for how they can leverage the value they created, in the investments. And this has been a big topic among the banks over here. But I would say it's still at the early stage, in the meantime, private debt fund is kind of booming in Asia. If you ask me what is a fundraising market here, I would say you probably will have a better shot to raise private debt fund than private equity fund these days. But private debt fund, it's booming. But I don't have much information as to what kind of transactions they are investing into. Is that like a typical private debt fund in US? Invest into mezz tranche, I don't have much information, but it's a hot topic. You would see or you would hear at every major event right now. On the fund finance side, GPs are not satisfied with, the subscription line, capital call lines. They are looking for, hybrid, to start, and then NAV financing for additional liquidity solutions. I think that requires a lot of education, to the GP and to the LP. And also the banks over here, we are all talking about it, but no one is really ready to do NAV financing. Occasionally, via relationships, right? If that's a big relationship, you bank every single fund, of this firm, you might consider, NAV financing, for occasion, like, would be isolated case. As a product, I don't think it's a mature product to be offered in Asia. Additionally, how much a bank can leverage, right? I think, even in US for bank facilities and NAV financing, as far as, to my knowledge, it's really very conservative. You are talking about probably only up to 15-20%, right, of the NAV. However, what the GP is looking for is really truly similar to a secondary transaction. They might look for more than 20 or 30, even 40%, of the value, right? So I think that is more like a private debt kind of product versus, a banking product that a bank is looking for. So maybe in the future, banks can team with, those private debt providers to do some unitranche, products within the senior, and they can, come under to provide a solution to PE funds.
And Emma, you worked in the US with a leadership role, and as well in Asia with a leadership role. How would you compare the two fund finance markets, US versus Asia?
That's really an interesting question. So when I started fund finance back in 2006, right? We all know, this is not an asset-based lending. It's not a typical, the banking product you would imagine, right? This is purely based on, you have more legal risk than credit risk I think, for this product. And there's a lot of time spent just to do legal due diligence, about the fund structure, who are your LPs, how you agree the terms in your LPA. Does your LPA allow you to borrow? How long does it borrow? How much does it, to borrow? And, if it's a management, GP credit facilities, will the LP allow the GP to pledge management fees, etc., right? So it's all summarized in the LPA versus when I first came to Asia, for the initial, few capital call lines, I need to look at, a lot of side letters, So in addition to LPA, basically all these powerful LPs will sign a side letter, which is as thick as, the LPA. And I think these days, almost, I would say 50% of the LPs, in a fund would assign a side letter here and there, with the GP. They all have special arrangement, right? So I think that's the fundamental difference in terms of the legal due diligence, right? You need to spend more time in Asia structure to understand what's really in the side letter before, dive into a capital call line or subline. And in terms of, the type of the funds in US, there's more variety of funds, right? In addition to typical, PEVC fund, we also have BDC funds, 40 Act funds, open-ended, those BDCs. And I think in my career, I've also provided the financing solutions, liquidity solutions, for BDCs or 40 Act fund, in a modified way. It's still a capital call line, but it's in a different way. But in Asia, it's very straightforward. It's all closed-end, private equity or VC fund. And in terms of product offering, I think in US, even in Europe, I heard, NAV financing is really booming, right? More and more players, especially from the private sector, are entering this market. And more and more banks are making it as a product, a typical product to offer NAV financings. But, NAV financing in Asia, I think, as I said, a lot of people discuss about it. I don't think, any bank out there has already offering it as a standard product, and just bear in mind, Asia is always behind the US and Europe, and it's going to create, this or that kind of product over here, but in a modified way, and it's always delayed in the process. But I think, it's very much needed in the market, right? And we are exploring as well. Actually, in our Hong Kong branch, during my, fund finance career over here, we did, complete a couple, NAV transactions here in different aspects. So, these deals are all tailor-made, highly customized. So I would encourage, funds would talk to us first about, what are you exactly looking for? And then, with the org chart, with the understanding of your cash flow, your transaction details, we can do something, together for NAV. Although, Asia it seems like, we have, our structure is more complicated than the typical structure we see in US. Pricing here actually, is lower than, what you see in the US. Surprisingly, we have requests from European funds about, capital call lines. They came to us asking for pricing because in general, in Asia, the pricing is lower in US. So I think that's probably, the main differences between US and Asia.
Thank you, Emma. And in the Fund Finance Expert Talk, we also develop technical points. Is there any technical point that you want to discuss?
Technical wise, I think, it's very similar to both markets. As I mentioned, due diligence might take more time in Asia because there are so many side letters, and other, I don't say funky structure, but it's unusual things, in the structure of a fund. So we might have to, be careful in terms of legal due diligence. I think the important thing is really to hire experienced, legal counsel and offshore counsel. And because in Asia, it's not Delaware structure, it's all Cayman or, BVI or Luxembourg, structures over here. So it requires more due diligence and takes longer time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. It was a pleasure to having you with us and for sharing your inspiring career journey with us. And to the audience, stay tuned to our LinkedIn page and our social media to be aware of next Fund Finance Expert Talk. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Cheers.
Thank you.